Mon nom est Bruno Gouliel-Minetti. Je me présente. Je suis l'animateur du podcast d'actualité numérique Mon Carnet. Et aujourd'hui, pendant toute la journée, j'ai la chance d'accueillir des conférenciers, des panélistes sur la scène blanche pour parler de différentes thématiques qui ont à voir avec le monde de la cybersécurité. Et aujourd'hui, je veux dire aujourd'hui, on a passé à travers différentes problématiques, différents angles, mais cette fois-ci, on va parler de ville intelligente, de Smart City. Alors, à partir de maintenant, comme dirait Shakespeare, je switch en anglais pour rejoindre mes invités. So I'm really happy to be welcoming you to this panel about smart city and cybersecurity. And I'm really, the thing that I'm most happy about is the expertise that we have on the stage today, because we have people who are involved in different level of cybersecurity, different aspect. And the first thing that I will ask them is to present themselves in the way that, what's their point of expertise about cybersecurity, and obviously the world of a smart city. And as you will hear, we're pretty lucky to have those three people with us on the stage. So let me present them. I'll do it in the proper order. There's Jeff Jones at the end. Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Who I would say is my Mr. Electricity, which is expertise. There's Lini Cultier in the middle. Thank you. Thanks for being here. And also there's Louis-Frédéric.
Hello, everyone.
Laszlo. And, I will start just like that. So let's start with you, since you're in the middle. Yeah. When we were approaching you about this panel, talking about smart city and cybersecurity, why did you agree to come and participate to this panel? What's your approach and what's your interest in that topic?
There are many, but to focus on one, we are all citizens of cities, and there is a digital transformation going on, and I think that many attacks occur in cities, and we are not prepared, but we have to be interested by that because we are citizens of the cities. First. Second, I am really interested in identity and access management, and it is a real subject that all of us know how to deal with that topic. So there are many aspects that interest me, but the first one is to be really unable to realize that we live in cities that are vulnerable, and what can we do about it? And it is very interesting.
Jeff, let me go to you. So I will go again with the same question. So why did you agree to come to this panel, but also what's your perspective about smart city and cybersecurity?
Thank you. My interest, I've spent my career in the critical infrastructure space, operational technology and ICS technologies, and when I start to think about the interconnectedness that is necessary when you start considering, bringing these critical infrastructures together, and my world really is the critical infrastructure, the things that we depend on for everyday life, clean water, transportation, supply chain, power, chemical treatment, wastewater treatment. When you start to think about the interconnectedness, those systems, as you all know, were not designed, power plants were not designed to communicate over the internet. The internet didn't exist when these power plants were built and some of these infrastructures were stood up. The more that cities become interconnected, the more you start talking about smart meters, AMI infrastructure, GPS syncing of trains, cars, electric vehicle charging stations, the effects that those technologies could have on the electric grid or on a society if a advanced persistent threat from an enemy state in a time of war or in a time of an espionage type of event, the cascading impacts to our way of life in modern society is really where I focus, and I think the technologies are wonderful, but more thought needs to be put into the defense before these types of things get deployed.
Thanks. Louis-Frédéric?
So my job is not like my friends to be on the preventive side. I'm here when everything failed. So I work in data protection, data management world. So we are, as I can say that, the last line of defense.
So do you consider you like a cyber fireman?
Yeah,
No?
in some way, it's
Okay.
a good way to
There you
illustrate
go.
that. So, yeah, we are here to offer a way to protect data sets in large environments, and to be here the day or every other solution fails, and you need to recover, to restart, and to relaunch an activity, or to archive in a secure way data sets. And especially with smart city today, you need to archive as maximum data possible to improve your modelization, your way to improve your software, your different abstraction system. And we are here to help you organization, public, private, governmental, federal, to store as the most cost-effective way and secure way data for long-term, for compliance, for retrain a model, an existing model, and so on. So we have an expertise around data protection and data management, fully complementary to expertise you have on the preventive ecosystem.
Lenny, I'll start with you because Jeff touched on the subject during his presentation. But when we're talking about smart city, and it's funny because, I mean, we've been talking about smart city for a long time, but rarely and really, really rarely, not to be able to find another word to properly say this, but we've mentioned or we've talked about the cybersecurity angle. And in the years that we're living now, I mean, it's something, and there's so many aspects, and you've touched on it, Jeff. There's so many aspects on a cybersecurity way of looking at it on a smart city. So I would be curious to have your thoughts on this.
Oh, as you say, I mean, for example, I heard that there are some cameras. We all use cameras in the towns, and some are not secure at all, and many people can have access to them. And you know, it's one of the example. Or let's talk about the water plant. I mean, and as you said, can just stop or put some chemicals, and we all have heard about those aspects. So we have to put in place quickly. We don't have time. Some solution that maybe we will dig after, but to be ready regarding that. But there are many examples. For example, we are talking about autonomous cars. So how will you supervise all of the system? All are questions that we have to answer quick and to put in place now.
Jeff, you mentioned a lot of different aspects, but at the beginning I was teasing you, saying that you were my electric man, because you have a huge background in that field, talking about grids and all that ecosystem that is involved in the electricity distribution. When you're looking at the subject of smart city, and you take the special aspect of electricity, you must be afraid of seeing all those old that are still there today.
The biggest thing with power is the lack of visibility into these environments and the lack of the ability to monitor the environments. Like I said earlier, these plants were built a long time ago, and they're built to last 45 years-ish. You can't go back. It's just like when we were talking earlier, it's kind of like, if you have a problem with your car and you're driving down the road at 90 miles an hour and you don't want to pull over to fix the engine, when you need to keep the lights on for a city or a geographic area, these plants just can't be taken offline to do some patching and some upgrades. The infrastructure itself is flawed. It was never meant to be networked. So the biggest problem now that we're seeing as far as incident response, and when we're looking at impacts of some of these environments, and then this goes for all, I would say all operational technology, is the border between the IT network and the OT network is not well architected in most organizations. A lot of organizations think You hear the term air gap. They think that the control system is air gapped. When we go in and do an assessment, we find that it's not. And it's by necessity. As technology has gotten better as far as, it's particularly in the power world, to do forecasting and load management and things like that. The business network needs to consume data from the control system network in a way that it never was designed to. So to be able to get that information through the DMZ and into the business network systems, that border between the two is not well understood, even when folks think they understand. When you go in and really do a systems of systems type of architecture assessment, we're finding very, very weak IT-OT borders. If there's any advice that I have, it's to focus on that border. The other thing is these technologies, in any kind of control system environment, usually the individuals that are responsible for the operation of those environments, they're very taxed. They're not as many people that they need to do the work are available. You might have one or two individuals that is an engineer in a power plant that's performing multiple jobs, not only keeping the plant running and doing the monitoring and making sure that everything is safe. They might also be creating accounts on the computers, talking to the IT department, and maybe taking out the trash on occasion. These people are overworked, and they don't have enough resources available to them to get this stuff done. They need to partner with the IT side of the organization and gain trust from each other and an understanding of each other's environments, so that there is an understanding that security is a safety and availability concept rather than a roadblock to them being able to get their jobs done. There is no visibility in these environments, or very little visibility as far as monitoring traffic on these networks, and a lot of them are really lacking even the very basics of something like the SANS Top 20 security controls, as far as an asset inventory, monitoring of the systems, network segmentation. These systems out in the OT environments, even though they might be very large geographically dispersed, there's very few systems that should be communicating with one another, and really isolating those network communications through access control lists or network segmentation, and then some very just basic visibility and monitoring of what should be talking to each other is the starting point. But like I said, when you're flying in an airplane, you can't just do engine repairs while you're up in the air. Keeping these plants running is the #1 priority, to keep generating electricity, generating power, certainly making money for the company. You can't just stop, and that's really is the challenge. But I think there is a solution. It's one thing at a time, starting with some of the very basics, like an accurate asset inventory and some very basic monitoring. And that monitoring technology doesn't have to be, a six-figure solution from one of the big vendors, although they do amazing things. Their technology is amazing. There's some things that can be done that are very low cost or no cost, just to start somewhere.
Lenny, I saw you taking notes. Do you want to add something on it?
Yeah, I would like that in order to, the first point is the security by design. Now, when you are in town, you are responsible. Before implementing a system, you have to think where I will put it, what is the security behind it, because after it's too late. Yeah. And there are other aspects more than technical. You have the privacy that you have to deal with. If a hacker has all information about you, about what you do, at which hour, we really have some data protection officer in charge to take care of that. So there are many, many aspects that are so heterogeneous and different to take into account. And we have to ask us the question, who is responsible? Is it the mayor of the town? Who is responsible of all of that?
And if I could add to that,
please do.
So you just hit right on the head. When we go in and do an assessment of an organization, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit tomorrow in my talk, the first thing you start with is an interview. You sit down with somebody and say, how do you do what you do? Whether you're building a widget, whether you're creating power, whether you're cleaning water, whether you're managing the control system that keeps trains on the track. Tell me what it is that if this stopped working, you would be out. You couldn't make what you make. The lights would go out, whatever it is. What system or what PLC or what technology is it that you must have to do what you do? and you start there, and usually that person will say, okay, well, let me get that individual, sit down with that individual, and then you start thinking about, I think of these assessments as more the difference between an IT security assessment and an OT security assessment is typically an OT security assessment is a systems of systems and sometimes systems of those systems types of assessments. What is it that you can't do without? And then you start there and say, this device is the crown jewel. Without this, we can't function. What does this device depend on? What systems underneath it keep that device running and secure? Maybe it's a network switch. Maybe it's another PLC, a piece of technology. And then look, start that small and walk backwards from there, saying what are the touch points to the other pieces on this system, and together you can build that picture of what can we not do without, and that is what you protect first and foremost and go backwards from there.
Oui, Frédéric, you heard what Jeff just told us. Is it the same kind of approach that you're taking when you're arriving to with a client, or is it's already too late?
No. It's never too late to put in place a data protection policy and a data management policy. And I love the approach because from the creative point of view, the data protection point of view, it's more or less the same process. We need to assess the infrastructure. Most of the time, we figure that people are asking us to come to protect the latest trendy thing, but in reality, you have legacy devices not covered with tech from 30 years existence. So, and the most important assets of the company or the organization are staying, and a lot of value is created in the organization with a very old system. Look at bank system, look at energy, it's very old tech. And most of the time, these assets are not covered, not protected, no automation. One of the points you touch, and it's something we have to consider and something very important. All of these organizations are still human-centric. Yes. A lot of system, a lot of security, a lot of confidentiality is leveraging people. And today something is forgotten, or to save money, something is very out of the scope today is automation. And what we are pushing our customers, partners, resellers, whatever, the relation we have with these people, it's to consider to put from day zero as a maximum automation possible to not leveraging or to leverage the best value from human and to let machine or automation taking the lead to orchestrate actions and to orchestrate security, data protection at the best way possible. So 2 points I think I would like to highlight today. Whatever the security piece you manage, prevention, data protection, backup, you can call as many ways you want. You have to keep this in mind. Don't be human-centric. Consider to put maximum automation from day zero. And second point, it's all heterogeneous system. And even if you have the latest super trendy technology, the modern one and so on, you have still very old things still running, still in production, and still a big lack in your security policy and a big breach in your organization.
Yeah, you want to?
When you're talking about human-centric, one of the things that has been, I think, a key point of advice, especially in a recovery situation, a disaster recovery situation, if you end up victim to something like ransomware, right? Ransomware has been just plaguing for the last, 2.5 years. Particularly, we're starting to see some of these ransomwares that are just designed for the criminal organization to make money, but they're making their way across that weak IT-OT border and causing effects in these systems that should not have any business communicating. And then you have a system that is locked down by ransomware, you've got a real problem. That human component, it's I think, very good advice that from a policy and recovery perspective to make those decisions in advance. If we get hit by ransomware, and maybe there's even thresholds, make the decision ahead from the risk management, individuals in the company all the way up to the chief executives. Will we pay the ransom? will we, is there a threshold when it's, if we're out for 4 hours, we don't pay it. If we're out, we, look at Colonial Pipeline, the big event last year, or JBS Foods. Those impacts, Colonial, they shut the plant down as a precaution, right? But it caused, a week of fuel not making its way up the East Coast in the U.S. Those decisions should be made ahead of time. Even if it's millions of dollars now, the U.S. government has, the CISA office from Department of Homeland Security, they offer assistance to companies that are stuck with this stuff. Make those decisions ahead of time, because when your stuff is down and everybody is scrambling and you're calling in an incident response organization or doing your own and having to recover from backups, are those backup technologies tested? Can you get everything back up and running in a ransomware situation? Because we found out, in Colonial, after the ransom was paid and they got the decryption key, it still didn't make any difference. They had to recover from their own stuff in the first place, and they were out millions of dollars. And again, luckily, they were able to recover a lot of that money. But those decisions can't be made in a crisis. They need to be made, ahead of time, and have those policies, procedures as part of the backup and disaster recovery strategy.
But yeah, you want to add something?
Yeah, I would say that it is human, and it is also based on artificial intelligence. It is both. I think we cannot lack of one. Both need to work together to work.
Yeah, you need both. But from what I'm hearing from you, there's also, a key question. It's nice to know the technology and implement it. It's nice to have management or mayor who knows about it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have any money, because there's a lot of plan and scenario who are being published for a lot of smart cities scenario, but it's all about the infrastructure. But I don't see any money being involved or talked about in cybersecurity. So I'm kind of curious to see. You want to go first?
Yeah. It was a comment I would like to raise. So, if from a couple of minutes, I was imagining being on the other part of the room and listening. It seems to be very expensive, all the things they are talking about. And in reality, putting in place security best practices, putting in place security is not, it could be expensive. I won't say that. I'm living from this expensive business, so don't stop to pay. But the simple things and putting in place best practices, security best practices to put in place an efficient backup policy, it's not as expensive as we can imagine. And let me take an example of one of my existing customers. So it's a French car manufacturer. I won't give you the name of this French car manufacturer. They've been attacked by ransomware a couple of years ago. It wasn't one of my customers when it happened. And the first action by the ransomware was to target backup. Before encrypting anything, the ransomware software attacked all the backups.
So and
they scratched everything from the backup side. And once the disaster recovery plan was fully screwed, they decided to attack the production environment and to encrypt. And because of that, they decided to close their manufactory for at least 3 weeks. So imagine at the scale of a big car manufacturer, the loss of money because of this incident. And now they have put in place a very simple backup solution. We touched the point of air gap a couple of minutes ago. They do a backup 2 tapes. So identity tapes still exists and is still a very good solution and a low-cost solution to prevent from ransomware. So they do a full backup to tape once, so they do daily backup to disk and so on. But they do a full copy of their data to tape once a week, and they offload all the tape from the library.
Wow. And
in case of disaster, of ransomware or any other threat, they have just to reload the tapes into the library and to restart. So, as I say, putting in place a security policy, putting in place a disaster recovery policy is not as expensive you can imagine. So there is still a price, and you have to pay all this guy for that, because you have plenty of open source free solution, but at the end of the day, you need knowledge to put it in place correctly, and so on. So it's still an arbitrage between quality, responsibility, price, and so on. But it's not as expensive as you can imagine to put in place an efficient solution, and it could be done for a cost-effective way with a low investment, in time, in price, and so on.
That's a really good example. Right?
But I think that nowadays a mayor cannot is forced to have maybe a special tax for to protect from attack. For example, a cybersecurity tax. And I think that the people are now ready and understand the consequences. So for me, it wouldn't be unpopular because we of course there are systems that are not expensive, etc. But in all cases, you will have to put money on the table because if you don't do it, you will pay much more.
We pay already a lot of taxes in France, so I'm not ready to pay more.
We need to continue to beat the drum and push the government for funding, because the government is pushing these renewables, pushing alternate sources, solar, wind, hydro, and then certainly, like I said earlier, the electric vehicles and things like that. If you want these technologies out there, there needs to be funding for security of them and research of them before they're put out there. I will give credit to the U.S. government, especially under Janet Easterly at CISA. They started with electricity and power. My understanding now is that they're looking, the next big push is water and chemical treatment. When you get funding from the Department of Energy or from the government to do research and do these things right, it helps, but it doesn't solve everything. But the government, if the government is in favor of evolving society into a smart, renewable structure, there's got to be some help.
Wow.
And there is another aspect is that each one of us has to be sensibilized and trained. Maybe, in some cities I've heard that there are specific people to help the elderly to better understand, to make them understand that please don't write your password. But every one of us. Yeah. So I think that in some town in France, there is a special IT guys to train people in the city for free, to give the little advice that can prevent some.
No, but you're right. They might be the entry door of all the network if they don't.
Yeah, identity and access management it's the best way. I mean, with the password you enter and and you have free way.
That's the first 30 minutes that I've been passing just like that in my life. There's 4 minutes left. If you have something to tell the people who are with us this afternoon that they have to keep in mind, people that are working on a smart city and cybersecurity aspect, what would be the goal, not the goal, but the thing that they have to think about and make sure that they do? What would be the first thing that they should keep in mind? I don't know, Jeff.
Invest in your people. There is no money better spent than in training and education of people. Even if you have, engineering by trade, and I'm talking about mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, is not the same as an IT engineer or a network support engineer or something like that. Those are different worlds. Learn from each other. Get people together on both sides of those worlds, because now we must support one another. We must understand and learn from one another. Just because you might be a very smart IT cybersecurity expert and super well educated, you don't know anything about an electrical engineer or chemical engineer's job. And they don't know much about IT, nor should they have to, right? Their job is to keep this thing running, to keep their environment safe. The biggest thing in these environments is safety of the people and the operation of what they need to do in a safe, reliable manner. Invest in education. These folks, there's wonderful companies out there, my own, there's SANS, there's CISA, there's all kinds of places, and there's conferences that you can learn from. Folks that can learn each other's worlds, they can learn skills in cybersecurity that can be applied in these types of scenarios, and there's no better investment than in your people.
Okay.
I would say that you have to segregate your activities, because in the smart city you have to have the ability, if there is an attack on a realm, to prevent the other one to be attacked too. So segregate and train the inhabitants of the cities, and invest in cyber. It is a must right now. I have some customers who tell me, "Oh, I don't have money this year." I was in an hospital. I will not say the town, in France 2 weeks ago, and the guy is telling me, "Oh, it's not for that year." Oh, come on!
Wow. And
Invest.
in 6 months, I'll be crying on the phone saying that.
Yeah, and call, and it is too late. And I had a discussion in May with a CISO, a potential customer. He said to me, "Oh, listen, it's too complicated. I don't have time." And 3 months ago, he was calling us. "Oh, what can I do? Help us." So invest now. It's crucial.
And there are free resources out there. I mean, there's resources from CISA, there's resources from SANS, there's resources on YouTube that you can learn and help. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
Oui, Frédéric?
So I think we touched a lot of topics today. I would like to conclude or to wrap up with one question. We touched a lot of things about security, we touched a lot of things, and I would like to open the discussion with another topic, last one. So what about sovereignty? Nowadays, you see the news. There is the different situation in the world, but one is becoming a very big thing and will be a very big thing in coming years. It's the capability to leverage my IT without depending from another country, from another region in the world. And if you look at the origin of a lot of solutions you implement today, you don't want to implement it. If you have to re-implement it today, I think you won't make that choice a new time. So I think it's something becoming a very big topic, especially in governmental organization or sensitive organization. You cannot leverage solution not from a country coming from NATO or ally of NATO. You cannot leverage a Russian solution in your global environment. You cannot take a Chinese solution in your environment, and especially in your, for example, a power grid. Because of the situation today, you cannot leverage a broad or foreign technology in a sensitive US or Canadian power plant. So something you have to consider today, and I see a lot of sovereignty wins coming in different regions. And I think it's a very big topic for security and security officers, data privacy officers coming in coming years. What about the sovereignty of solution they put in place to protect the sovereignty or my sovereignty as a company, organization, country, region, whatever?
Wow, that's another topic for a panel that you just opened. But we're out of time. We might be able to take one question. Is there somebody who would like to ask a question to one of the members of the panel? If
It's
so,
free.
yeah, please go to the microphone. But we'll only have time for one question. So, sir?
Bonjour. Vous avez parlé de la cybersécurité, de la transformation urbaine. Par contre, dans la plupart des villes, on retrouve les systèmes qu'on utilise, ce sont des systèmes qui viennent du cloud. Autrement dit, on a un ERP qui vient du cloud. On a un système de contrôle de chauffage qui vient du cloud, et ainsi de suite. Alors, quels sont vos commentaires là-dessus, de ce côté-là, au niveau cybersécurité? Parce que la cybersécurité est prise en charge par un tiers, que ça s'appelle Amazon, que ça s'appelle Google, et ainsi de suite. Alors, on n'a plus de problème de sécurité, on n'a plus de problème de backup, on n'a plus de problème d'attaque. On n'a plus de problème de réseau, parce que c'est du VPN. Alors, quelles sont vos pensées là-dessus?
So I want to take that.
Je démarrais juste en disant que, attention, c'est pas parce que c'est dans le cloud que ça va être plus sécure. Nous, on a des clients qui ont des systèmes on-premise. I'm talking in French, sorry. I have a customer, they have systems on-premise, And they have been attacked, and for many reasons. So I think that the basic thing is to step down and analyze. If you can protect the cloud with many solutions, encryption, and many. I think that it's not a problem of cloud or on-premise. It's not that. It's to think about it. What are the threats? How do you respond to them? Just.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Thank you for that. And I think you have already figured a lot of challenges with this question. And I think I joined my colleague here to and what she said. It depends for what you are paying for. So depending the service, you have security included or not. And most of the time, by default, you can think security is covered, backup is covered, everything is included. But in reality, if you lead the very small lines at the end of the contract, you are responsible for your data. You are responsible to put in place a security policy. But you're right. A lot of people have thought for many years that cloud is a new Eldorado. I have to push all my thing. Everything will be taken charge by AWS, Azure, whatever. In reality, you have just moved the problem somewhere else. And you have still to figure and to take this problem in consideration and to manage this problem, to manage the security. It's a different topic. Put in place security in the cloud, it's a different matter than putting security in place on-premise. But depending for what you're paying for, please read all the small lines at the end of your contract and consider the security of your cloud like you consider the security on-premise. You have just moved where you auth your data, where you auth your workload, but at the end of the day, it's just the same thing. You have to put in place security. It's a different security solution to put in place, but same thing. You just move from on-premise to the cloud, and please read those small lines. And depending for what you pay for, you have to take that on your own.
Jeff, you want to add something?
That's exactly what I would have said. And there is a huge push right now from a lot of the OT solutions providers to move some of the even like HMI technologies to the cloud now, and it's a major problem. It's a major concern. Just like you said, you need to understand the small print. You can't just assume that because this security is somebody else's problem because I have decided to use their infrastructure or their storage or their backbones. You need to understand all of those touch points. You need to understand, especially when you're talking about control system or critical infrastructures, where that stuff is located, what the entry points could be, and the infrastructure as if it was your own. One of the things, if you want a job for the rest of your life, I'm giving a talk tomorrow called How to Not Be Unemployed the Rest of Your Life. Cloud security of OT and ICS systems is a massive need. My company needs you if you've got the skills. But one thing I want to seriously drive home, if you have cloud security skills, just like you said, you can learn the OT side of it. You can learn the ICS stuff. That's teachable. If you've got a background in cloud security, that is the wave of the future. Everybody is moving that way, especially when you're talking about critical infrastructures. We need you. So
what time your conference tomorrow?
I don't
That's
know,
the only information missing.
4:30ish or something.
Oh, yeah, good.
Over there at like 4-ish.
A last
final
point
one.
that is not technical but that is huge, the ethical aspect. Because when you have a smart city, someone has all information about you. And some people can take this information and use it. So there has to be someone somewhere in the town that will deal with that ethical information.
Hey, boy, we could go for another 30 minutes. Guys, Jeff, Lenny, et Louis-Frédéric, thanks for sharing your thoughts on the question.
To you.
It was an honor.
Thanks for being
Thank you,
here.
everyone.
Merci d'avoir été là. Et on vous retrouve dans environ 1 heure avec un prochain panel. Merci.
Super.
Merci.